Hello, YouTube. This is Captain Omni, and I'm coming at you with another fanfiction concept. And as you can tell by the title, this is another Hazbin Hotel fanfiction. And this one, as you can tell, is going a little bit more maddening. Yeah, this is a Cthulhu Mythos Hazbin Hotel crossover. Now, for those of you who may be wondering where this is going, the inspiration kind of came from the fact that there are some allusions to the Cthulhu mythos in Hazbin Hotel already. It's been confirmed that one of the major characters, like families and such, in the Hell's Circle is the Von Eldritch family, who have a very deep sea kind of nod to them. However, they're kind of more based on the concept of the Leviathan from the Bible than anything necessarily Lovecraftian. But so the idea here is there are angels, there are demons, and then you have the abominations. And the reason they're called that is, well, they quite literally should not exist, and yet somehow they are capable of doing so. Basically, in terms of raw power, they're roughly equal to demons, and they're roughly equal to angels in some cases. But nothing they do basically short of God intervening and doing something, yeah, they really can't die permanently. And even then, that's more kind of an odd thing, really. So yeah. Anyway, so basically the whole thing is they have their own section of hell, which is essentially known as the city of Ryla, or Relay, however you prefer to pronounce it, and which is actually tied to the mortal realm in a sense, because once the stars get right, Relay starts rising for a bit, rising just a bit, and yep, that's when old Cthulhu awakes. However, there would be kind of a joke here that essentially because they are not part of the heaven and hell dynamic, the world's kind of had to be reset just a little bit here and there for a few eons now because of this. So God's okay, putting the reset button on this whenever they awaken. So yeah, that's kind of a bit of a joke, a running gag there. Oh no, Cthulhu's awake again. Hang on, beep. Yeah. But yeah, the city of Relay is essentially kind of home to the star spawn of Cthulhu. It's got some of the other eldritch horrors and such. And yeah, the thing is, here's the thing. Angels are pretty much stated to be fairly nice, and of course demons can be nice. Not many of them are, but they're ultimately still kind of geared a bit more toward evil. The abominations are pretty much just to give you an example, demon meet abomination. Your mother sucks cocks. Oh, thank you. Here's a jar of mayonnaise. Hope it helps with the toilet problem. Literally, they basically, the abominations are essentially run the gambit of being Deadpool level crazy, or basically Ed from Ed, Edd and Eddy. That would be the thing. They are they work on a morality system that is, well, for basically alien. Demons are evil, ultimately, and angels are ultimately good. That's kind of what the setup's supposed to be. The abominations are kind of okay, yeah. They kind of get a base understanding that some of the stuff that you're supposed to do, it doesn't really line up with that. But still, at the same time, though, they're man, those guys are weirdos, huh? When they're talking about everyone else. Now, so there would be a few characters here. One of them would be, of course, the crawling chaos himself, Nyarlathotep. who is essentially, think Alastor, except the fact that he's a little bit more chaotic. Because again, he's the crawling chaos. And his whole thing is, what makes him different from the other abominations is he's learned, like actually taken time and learned what the usual like morality and stuff is, and he's decided, yeah, evil suits me. Yeah, evil suits me. And he's like he's essentially like again, he can't necessarily he can't necessarily, mostly he's taken upon himself to just, you know what, I'm going to do whatever fancies me at the moment. And he's got the story like suave, kind of like, he's almost more like the Joker in a sense. In the sense of, he's not necessarily constantly like laughing or being happy, but in the sense of whatever he feels like doing, that's what he's going to do that day. Whatever he wakes up and feels like doing, that's what he's going to do that day. It could be wipe out. He could be causing a mass destruction, or it could be, or it could just be picking one person to follow around for the day and see what happens. That would be it. He's because again, literally, he is chaos embodied. And yeah, the other thing would be also, now I bet you're wondering, how would I do Cthulhu? Because, usually if Cthulhu's awake, that's not good. That is very not good. Well, the thing is, how I do Cthulhu is, if he's awake in hell, that's one thing, but if he's asleep, but if he's awake and, like, when rises, that's when things get bad. And of course, so basically if he's awake in hell and doing stuff, that's one thing, but anyway, and basically Cthulhu's thing is, he is basically think Ed from, I already made this comparison, I know, but like think like Ed from Ed, Edd and Eddy, if he was just like wandering around, like just if he was like, except a eldritch abomination. So yeah, this would essentially be like, he would actually consider Lucifer a friend. He'd consider Stolas a friend. He'd basically he'd actually be very friendly. I would actually play with the fact that, yeah, Cthulhu is not necessarily evil or like malevolent, like wanting to cause harm. It's just, yeah, if he's ever up topside, that's going to be a thing no matter what. So yeah, and like basically like, okay, like just this whole scene here of like Lucifer and Lilith in bed, and like Lucifer rolls over and like there's just Cthulhu laying next to him, and he's like, I can't sleep, Lucifer. Get the fuck out of my bed. But what if I can't sleep. I just keep thinking, I just keep thinking, if hell is supposed to be underground, then how come we can't see the molten core? You know what would be good to ask this guy? Why don't you go bug him? Oh, you won't. Oh, well, that's kind of far, and you're right here. Basically, it's like he doesn't mean harm, but he doesn't necessarily mean well either, necessarily. It's basically, it's kind of, again, he's just like Ed. It's like kind of a kind-hearted simpleton kind of thing, except the fact that he is kind of like playing against the usual Cthulhu stereotype a bit. And of course, the Star Spawn, his Star Spawn, are essentially like, the equivalent of your baseline imps, in hell. Like, they're natural, as natural as an eldritch abomination can be. They kind of make up most of the denizens of Ryla, and of course you have the deep ones who essentially like when they like from Innsmouth, who essentially like when they end up like joining Dagon, they're like, okay, yeah, that's where they go, down there. Like that is how deep, the portal to go to Dagon is. And yeah, so yeah, there's them, and of course, yeah, just a few things like here or there. Like basically, like the whole thing would be kind of like, and of course, then you have the main crux of this. Cthulhu checks into the hotel. yeah, that's one part of this. Like, Cthulhu checks into the hotel. And here's the thing. The whole redemption thing does not work because he's not on that system. They are literally so alien to the heaven-hell system that it doesn't work. So, but he's like, oh, well, it seems fun. So it's like them having to put up with Cthulhu. Imagine that one. Yeah, you've heard of the thing that should not be? Try the thing that would not leave. Yeah, of course, even Alastor is like, we need to get rid of this guy very fast. I remember some of the stories that near Mr. Lovecraft wrote about him, and they were not flattering. Yeah, and of course the joke would be, Cthulhu would visit Lovecraft in his dreams, kind of, because the whole thing is like, well, most nightmares and weird dreams are caused by Cthulhu, so he'd actually kind of like visit Lovecraft in his dreams, and that would be kind of like horrify him with like some with all the knowledge he knows, and then like that would be like what inspired most of Lovecraft's innate fears of the world here. But anyway, yeah, so and another thing, over on the flip side, we would have the King in Yellow, aka Hastur, who would actually be a pretty close friend of Stolas. Yeah, like on the flip side, basically, while and of course, as most of you may or may not know, Hastur is essentially the brother of Cthulhu. It's kind of murky on some level, but like he's essentially accepted as the brother of Cthulhu, who is the ruler of the Dreamland. And the Hastur is the ruler of the Dreamlands. I don't have if he's actually a good friend of Stolas. Like, he's like, and which also means that, Hastur ends up being kind of involved with IMP on that flip side. And unlike Cthulhu, like, because the Hastur is so connected to the dreams and the dreamlands, he is a bit more aware of like people. He's not quite as weird, but he is weird in his own way. It's like basically if Cthulhu is Ed from Ed, Edd and Eddy, Hastur would be closer to, say, Daffy Duck. Like he's kind of full of himself. He's like insanely full of himself. Bit of a kind of an asshole. But it's like get him in the right mood. Yeah, he's still kind of an asshole, but he's fun. But yeah, and like kind of like a mix of early Daffy and like later Daffy. Like if it's like like he's like as goofy as early Daffy Duck, but at the same time, but if you get him angry, we're looking at like, greedy asshole Daffy. So yeah, like anyway, in fact, he is actually kind of anyway, this has been Captain Omni. Hope you guys like that, and yeah, please let me know, comment below, let me know what you think, and I will talk to you guys later. This has been Captain Omni, signing